It's the last of the 30s, which is pretty scary. And finally, we've gone over my age, which I'm happy about. I'm in the hunker in the bunker, and I'm joined by an ex-colleague of mine and a very wonderful person, Mr. Duncan Rhodes. Hello, sir. How are you? Oh, no, wait. Oh, hold on, Dunk. I started the whole thing without you on the screen.
Oh no! Oh
So-
man, I waved and everything.
I know. It's just getting to me at this stage. It's because we were doing too much chatting offline. Anyway, Mr. Duncan Rhodes, everyone. Hello, sir. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Hello, I'm really well, thank you. Really well. I think yeah, I'm looking outside wistfully at all the sunny weather and thinking, man, I wish the reenactment season was still happening.
That's what I always think. First thing I see a sunny day, I think I really wished I was dressed in English lineman infantry and walking towards some English fellas with a bad French accent. I've never thought anything more.
You see, that's why we get on so well. Yeah.
Although I would play the French because I would like to be ridiculous.
Well, that's what I do, man. I'm on the French side.
Oh, really? What is it about the French lineman that interests you the most?
Well, I guess because I kind of got into, like, for wargaming side, I got into Napoleonics via the French army. I basically got bought a box set of French by Peachy, got them for me for Christmas, and so I just started painting them and I learned about them, and I actually found that aspect of the war with Napoleon and the history of that really, really fascinating. So I ended up just sort of thinking when I decided to go for it, I was like, oh, I don't know what side to be. And I was saying to my girlfriend, I was like, oh, I don't know which side, because I am English, of course, so I understand the language, but I like the French uniforms and their history and stuff. And she's like, oh, be the French, you like them more. Oh, okay. And it turns out the French side's really fun because everyone wants to be British, so the French have to be a little bit more lax on the rules of getting into it. So it's a bit more of a laugh on the French side of things. Nicer food as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think people know that you're into reenactment, or do you think people know that you're into reenactment?
I saw a photo go around of me at it was our annual AGM just over a year ago now. With one of the guys who's in the group, and they were all like, "What's he doing?" And like, yeah, I'm a massive nerd. I love that stuff. I've been thinking about doing it for years, and I decided to finally take a plunge as just some hobby that's different from the gaming aspect. Because of course, like my job is the painting side of things. Sometimes you want to get away from that and do something else. And I thought that would be a fun thing to do. Goes outside, I learn a bit more history, make some new friends. It was, I actually really love it. I've been doing it for a year and a half, but of course this year the season's basically been cancelled because of obviously what's been going on. So I'm hoping that at the very end of the season there's still one that can happen, because then everyone will go to it and it'll be amazing.
I honestly didn't know that there was a LARPing season. Is it like?
Yes.
Is it effectively the summer? So 3 weeks.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, it starts. So the first event of the year starts at the very end of March, usually right after Adepticon. So I'd go to Adepticon's show, get back, and then recover, and then go to the first show. And the last one goes around September, October time. So yeah, when it gets really cold. And in Europe, they still do it in the freezing cold, because there's some battles that took place in the winter, and so you get thousands of French and Germans and Russians all turning up and reenacting a battle somewhere in the freezing cold, and you see photos of them camping in the snow and stuff. That's a bit too far for me. I like it to be
and me. It reminds me of Peep Show, where they both go. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that, and I'm like, okay. And he's like, oh no, we don't actually think that. We're still in character, right?
Yeah. Well, some people take it very seriously, but on the French side, like, people don't really. I mean, like, you kind of, when you're doing when you form up and you're doing the maneuvers, everyone's an enthusiast in it. So you're wanting to try and do the motions and maneuvers and stuff accurately to depict what it would have been like, at least as best as you can. And so to that point, it's like, yeah, you do as the officer says and things. But they're kind of in charge of the group. But it is more of like, it's just a bunch of people having a hobby. It's almost like he's a games master in a way, in a gaming group or something. So it's everyone just has a good time and wants to have fun and just enjoy the shared interest. So it's not super serious. Everyone knows you're not actually in the army.
I bet there's one guy though. Like, I bet there's one guy who's like.
Well, some of the British units apparently take it super seriously, and they'll post sentries at random places around the wherever the event's taking place. And you're like, oh man, you got to stand there for 2 hours guarding a bridge, and no one cares. So, That I find a little bit strange. That's a bit too far. Um,
As Gitley says in the chat, and it's a great time, I think, to say hello to everyone in the chat. Some take. Would you say that some take it seriously and others are just having a larp?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would. There's actually, weirdly, there's quite a lot of Warhammer players in our group. So I'm in the 45th, and in the larger French brigade, there's a few little groups that all form part of this brigade.
Why do you think that's weirdly? Like, how do you,
well, no, I don't
how do
suppose
you...
I should think. When I when I first went along, it didn't really occur to me. So in my particular group, the 45th, there's wargamers, but not necessarily Warhammer players.
Right.
Whereas in the 21st, there is Warhammer players, and I ended up. So there's another guy who was actually teaming up with us for this one particular event, like in the middle of summer one time, and we were. This was before I got my license to actually have a proper musket, because in the UK, for anyone not aware, like I know in the US it's very different, but in the UK you have to get a license to have a shotgun, and they class a musket as a shotgun. Now bear in mind, I can't shoot the thing if I'm not issued with black powder and things, all right? So it's completely harmless, but you have to go through all the hoops for it. But at this particular event, I'd been given a replica one, and it was such a good replica that the flint on it was actually really sharp. And as I was going through the motions of loading it in this reenactment battle thing, it was actually a skirmish. It was like a paintball match. It was dead weird, but it was awesome. Anyway, so I was going through the motions of loading, and I cut my thumb on the flint, and because it's so sharp, I was bleeding quite a lot, and I realised this, and I was like, "Uh-oh, has anyone got any like tissue or something I can just wrap my finger in and stuff?" And the guy next to me, he's got a pack, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've got something." So he goes through that, gets some stuff out, and I wrap my thumb up, and we can carry on. Anyway, you find out later on that he had been basically positioned next to me in the line, and he thought I was Duncan from Games Workshop, as you know, I was at the time. But it wasn't until then that he actually realised I was, because of the way I was talking to him and stuff. And he's like, "You were just like you are in the videos." And I was like, "Oh, well, that is me in the videos." And yeah, from that point on, he was like, "Oh, I wanted to talk to you about my Death Watch, but I was too my Crimson Fists, but I was too nervous to." And I was like, "Oh, dude, don't be nervous." But then since then, I found out a whole load of them all play Warhammer and things. And at the moment, because the season's kind of been stopped, they've all been getting into Napoleonic gaming. So there's like a big chat thing I'm a part of, and every now and then I look over at my phone and find there's like 90 messages of them all talking about, you know, what basing convention they're going to use and all this stuff.
I can't wait to talk about when I set up Twitter for you on your phone, and you know,
Yes.
well, no, you set it up, but then you came into
Yeah,
the next
I was like,
day.
how do I stop it buzzing?
So the funniest, handed it me like it was some sort of like a bit of the reactor from Chernobyl, and you were
Yes.
like,
Yeah, it's going to bite me. Yeah. Yeah. I got encouraged to sign up to Twitter, because I'm not really that, you know, into social media really, but I got encouraged to do so, to see all the hobby stuff people are doing. So I did, and then people realised I was there, and I got I can't remember exactly how many people followed me overnight. It was a few thousand followed me in the first night or so, and my phone wouldn't stop buzzing about every single person. So all night it was bzz, bzz, you know. It's driving me crazy. Yeah, you saved me, man.
that was it was just very funny. Your face, you were like halfway between like please save me and halfway between like I'm done with this. Like like it was a mistake. I've been a fool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should have listened to
I
myself.
delete it? I don't understand.
Honestly, one of my favourite memories. It made me laugh so much. Your face, you were like, "Fuck this."
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm hopeless with phones and stuff like that.
Well, when we get on to talking about it, it doesn't look like you're actually that bad about it all. Like, when it comes to social media, you've been rocking it recently. I can't wait to talk to you about it. But I just want to say hello to everyone in the chat before we go on. So, Heinrad, Serbator, Gitley, Scrivo, Desert Sketch, Street Butter, everyone for joining us. Thank you. Jack, I see you there, Bradley. Thanks for joining us. As always, if you are listening to the podcast, which you might be doing, then please stay hydrated, drink loads of water. I like everyone to stay safe and healthy. And also, thanks to everyone on the Oswego Patreon. You guys are legends. So, big love. So, thanks for joining us. If you do have any questions, maybe save them to the end. And there we go. What was I going to say? Someone mentioned in the chat as well that what's LARP, and I think it's live action role play. So people,
Yes.
you like sometimes it's wizards and warlocks. In Russia,
Yes.
it's Warhammer characters. Have you seen the Russian LARPers?
Yes. Oh, and there's that reminds me actually. So you must have heard of like the nerd hierarchy, you know, of people who like cause we're all dorks in our own way, right, for liking this sort of stuff. And yeah, reenactment is basically like LARPing and stuff like that. But there are some who get offended by that kind of thing. They're like, no, it's completely different. It's different from I find that very strange. I just think it's all, you know, to me, it's all just everyone just enjoying the thing they like, right? But yes, I've seen the people doing the Warhammer stuff. But that reminds me, in Russia, there's an event called the Battle of the Nations, where it's teams from around the world turn up in medieval reenactment gear and fight a tournament. And this tournament is violent, man. It's
Oh,
all weapons are blunt.
I've seen it. Yeah,
Yeah. But
yeah.
they there's video footage of a guy with he's got a pole axe. So this is like, I mean, massive two-handed axe, right? And he swings it, holding it at the very end of it, so it's got the full momentum of it. And he nails this guy right in the head. Oh God, is he dead? No, just gets up and carries on fighting. Crazy, crazy. But yes, I have seen the Warhammer guys who do the Warhammer LARPing, and their costumes are incredible. They're
Yeah,
so cool,
just
marching along with like a warrior priest and all the Empire State soldiers and things.
that's the problem though. Is most of it's Eastern European,
Mm,
and so I'm never quite sure if they are role playing or just generally that's what they want to wear. Like that's the fashion at the time. I can
mm,
never be 100%, especially the Russians because those guys are like the Polish Age of Sigmar and 40k ETC WTC teams, whatever they might be, are some of the
mm.
most like I don't know if you probably not, but I don't know if you've watched any of the gaming stuff coming out of Poland, Russia, or any of the Eastern European guys. But those guys are fucking serious, and it is
Wow.
amazing. Like the passion is so electrifying that
Mm,
I'm not certain if they've decided to just completely commit to the roles. They're just like,
mm.
this isn't LARP. This is like I went to
It's real.
Sainsbury's in this. Yeah.
Well, man, it's if that's what they want to do. I mean, I can hardly judge about somebody being serious when I'm walking around dressed as a French soldier, can I?
Same. Neither can I. All right. None of us can, nor should we.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so thanks for being on the show. But it's an exciting time for people to see you live on the air. Obviously, there are ways that people already can see some stuff you're doing at the minute, but you obviously have left working for Games Workshop and have gone on to do a new project. That's incredibly exciting. What is it that pushed you into that? What inspired you to do that?
First of all, it's not just me who's gone and done it. So I've gone along with a friend of mine called Roger, who I've been working on with the Warhammer stuff since we started doing it. Really, so
He sounds a
we've
bit
been
like this, doesn't it? He's a bit like my name's
yeah.
Roger, and
He is. He's an angry South African man. Is how I like to describe. He's not really angry. It just amuses me to call him that. He's lovely. He's a really really nice guy. He was the one who set up the idea of the painting studios, and the back when Warhammer TV started, he was like the first person employed for it. And he always thought that TV was a good way of showing how to do painting tutorial stuff, and he kept pushing at the idea. And he sort of got a little bit of leeway in with the DVD thing, and that's where I first encountered him, because this is for a publication they did where there was like a DVD with it, explaining the things that the book showed. And he wanted to develop the idea further, and eventually he got allowed to do an experiment, and he got me into it because I had the experience of doing it. By that point, which the video we did was building a Riptide battle suit, and it's immensely boring and really, really long, but it was good enough to prove the concept to his boss at the time, that they then decided to employ a presenter. So I was the one that then got the job. So I've kind of known Roger since then. So it's been over 8 years now. And yeah, we formed a very good team. We understand each other well when it comes to making this kind of stuff. We understand what each other's looking for in the work. Like I get the sort of shots that he wants, and he understands what I'm trying to explain with my scripting and the way I talk about things. And we have a very good back and forth approach to these videos. So yeah, we just get like a house on fire. But he's always had a dream of having his own business. Like he's always wanted to go and do something and work for himself and experience that part of life. And he wants to look back and know that he's actually done something that he can be really proud of, and that he's achieved, and it's something cool for his family and things. So the idea just started coming about of like, could we these painting videos? There's a lot outside of Games Workshop out there, and I've always been into all these other different games and things. Could we have the same sort of success we've had with Warhammer with these other things? So eventually we just got to the point of, well, if we don't do it, we never will do it. Why don't we try it? And it was really scary. It was like really scary, building up to knowing that I was going to be handing in my notice, to leave a career that's been wonderful, and this this job I love. Stepping outside of it, it was a big gamble. But then it was a similar kind of thing to when I left the hobby team to go and do the TV stuff in the first place. Know if it was going to work or not, but it paid off. So I thought, you can't carry on doing like in the same place doing the same thing forever. You got to try and up your game and do something a bit more. So Yeah, why
Would it be
not?
right to say he who dares wins? Is that correct?
Yes, he who dares. Yes, yes. Fortune favors the bold. Yeah.
All day long. All day long. I mean, it is like that's a super scary thing, um, uh, I can't imagine it. Especially, people would have said that you were living the dream anyway. You were at a job at a place that I know that you loved and still do. You're doing a job that you enjoyed. You're working with Roger. I could definitely see that. But I could also understand, and having known you from the time, I understand like your LARPing and all of the other stuff because you were the consummate professional. If there were two types of people who could work for Games Workshop, there's Duncan as a consummate professional, and there's me as an angry dickhead. Like and then you got everyone in between, right? You got everyone in between, and anger could also be passion, but we'll just put them there.
I'll say passion. Yeah.
We'll say passion. We'll say passion, but I don't mind the other reference. But what is cool is to see that professionalism maintained all the way until the end, and then when you finally released it into the world, you were like, "Hey, dudes, look, I love all of this stuff," and I think people were blown away by that. How did you feel about the initial reaction?
I thought so. The initial reaction kept surprising me, especially that people kept thinking that I'd painted these things only since I left Games Workshop, which was like, well, I couldn't have possibly done all that stuff in a week. Like, I was posting images daily of like, this is a collection of these things, and then like, here's some historical things, here's some stuff from War Machine or whatever, Like, I obviously have been painting this stuff for quite a long time, and for me, it was really exciting to share these things because I was weirdly finding that people were unaware of these things existing. When I put up some Star Wars Legion stuff, so some stormtroopers, there were people saying there's a Star Wars war game. Like, well, yeah. And I think it's been really fun introducing people to these things. I think that's really cool. So I find that Warhammer is very much like a sort of a central hub of the hobby. Like, you can go to anywhere in the world, any gaming shop, there'll be people in there playing Warhammer. So if you have a Warhammer army, you can go somewhere new and be able to join in. But there's going to be different tastes for everybody that focuses more towards what they like. And I think it's been really fun sort of expanding people's point of view to maybe be finding these things. And that's been cool. It's been really nice sharing miniatures from smaller companies as well, like sort of showing that these are actually really cool as well. You might want to take a look at these. I think that's been really fun. And it's been nice to I've wondered for years, what would it be like to do a painting video for these different things, these different subjects I'm interested in? Like, how would presenting a video on a historical subject be different to what we've been doing for Warhammer? So it's been really exciting to be able to do that. But the biggest thing I took away was just the surprise. Firstly, for people thinking that I'd painted them all so fast, but also the surprise that because obviously so Games Workshop's such a what do they call it, a downward I can't think of what the name they have for the system for it, but basically the idea with Games Workshop is that everything's sort of self-contained. So if you're getting new into the wargaming hobby, they provide everything for you, which is a really great way of running your business, because you've got you can supply everything, you can do everything, you can keep everything very insular and connected. These other companies just don't have the ability to do that sort of thing. So whilst they might be able to make a war game, they certainly can't make a paint range to go along with it. So it's I see why people would think then, if we're only promoting, because we only have to stay inside the Games Workshop thing to promote everything in those painting videos. Yeah. I see why people then think that you only think that stuff exists. I think
but it's also really hard as well. If I could touch on something for a moment, because when I first got into and as we talked about this off air, you and me encompass, I would say, different tenets of the hobby to a degree.
Yes.
And we talked about that a lot when we were at work together. And that was fine. You thought you were like, why do you care about the game so much? Shut up. Right. But. For me, that's also true for tutorials on how to game, even articles on how to game. That, for instance, there's and I was telling you off air, that's come on leaps and bounds even in the past few years. There's been people writing actually really decent articles. Tactica videos are a lot of people say their video is a Tactica video, but really what it is them just kind of saying some words and no actual tactics. So it's come on leaps and bounds in the past few years when it comes to that dimension. But really, when you talk about learning to paint and how people get into the hobby. Obviously, most people are introduced to Warhammer through Games Workshop, like you said, and then their first port of call was you and Roger in those painting
Yes.
tutorials. So,
Yes.
like, the mark of quality which you guys put in, which I know was a hard push from Roger, like, I was aware, and a hard push from you. Like, I know that that was two things that you both were very serious about. So, actually, credit where credit's due that you guys actually, as much as that is a closed off system, like it's a circular system like Apple,
Yeah.
where you into the wire, they get the paints, the clippers, you got everything you need inside the system. You also gave people an excellent tutorial into being better hobbyists, which I think is really positive because that might not have existed. So I can see why people wouldn't see that in other war games, because I'm not saying there aren't other great painting tutorials for other war games, because there are, absolutely, but I think you have to trust someone or even hear about them, and that's easier said than done, right?
Yes, I think so. I think so. I find when it comes to hobbies and things, there can often be a quite an intimidating step up to get into something like that. And I mean, I've experienced that sort of thing because especially when I was younger, I was very sort of like a very shy, introverted kind of person. So if you are new getting into something and you have a bad experience of it, it can put you off completely. And I really, really hate the idea of that happening when it comes to wargaming stuff. So if you, I'm aware that there's people who've had a go at painting some stuff and they turn up to play games with it, and people have made fun of what they painted, and that just switches them off to the hobby completely, and they're like, whatever, move on. And I hate that being a barrier of entry. I really think that if you want to learn this stuff, it's got to be as easily accessible to you as possible to encourage you to achieve these things that you want to be able to do. And I think there's, my sphere is, of course, on the gaming side of things. No, not the paint side of things. The gaming side of things is something that
I was really hoping you were about to reveal that you were like a legendary gamer, like in the Napoleon. I was really hoping in the Napoleonic scene, Duncan Rhodes. They're like, oh no, he's going to crush us again.
That's why I was him again. Yeah, with my Napoleon hat. Yeah. I think that the painting thing is a thing that I understand, and like I want to make it accessible. So even there's been requests for high-end videos from like high-end painting techniques and things, and that's something we're able to explore now with the academy. But I'm always wanting to make sure that the majority of people that are into the hobby who want to learn and improve and get to a certain level, that's kind of what my main area of expertise is in. And if people then want to go on to learn really high-end stuff, there's plenty of people out there who do those kind of things, like really, really amazing painters. And I think it's important to have that sort of aspect for it. Like I say with gaming, if you go into a game and you complete an experience and you get crushed by your opponent and you don't understand why, that can be an off-putting experience. So having support available for you that teaches you the tactics, and the instructions got to be very clear on the tactics. And like with our stuff, it's not about the curious thing about the weird fame that's followed me around for this sort of stuff. I've never understood that, and I don't quite get it now. For me, the star of every video is the miniature that you're painting. That's what people care about, and that's why they're spending their time watching it. So everything's focused on making that subject as good as possible. I think if you lose sight of that, then the quality of things immediately dips. So it's always got about the tuition. And I think the same is true for if you're watching something on gaming. It's got to be explaining the thing rather than necessarily it's got to be I'm going to show you this thing rather than I'm going to show you this thing. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
I think it's
absolutely.
a subtle difference. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I always considered it translation, like what we do when we do like a battle tome review. Like I read the book, but what I'm trying to do is translate the information in like sound bites. Like Seraphon, salamanders and bastiladons are good. There you go. Like you can walk away with that. You're like, okay, sweet. Like I don't need more than a high line. Yeah. And I think that helps. But I think maybe we jumped to government a bit. But I'd like to come back to talk about some of the other miniatures more, which would be fun. But you guys decided to set up and go and do this business, which is a brave move, and I applaud you for it. And then, were there any initial teething problems, or just excitement? Like it must have been sadness to leave, right? That must have been a tough time.
Yeah. It was. It was very, very sad to go. It was, especially going up to the last day there. It was like a big, and I purposely kept it very quiet. So Roger kind of talked more to people that he was going, but for me, I didn't quite know what people would say or do, so I just didn't tell anybody. So as late as possible, and so I left, but it hadn't been announced because technically my last day was like the very end of December. But it leaked at some point before that, so that's when I started talking more about it. But that was a very sad experience. But it was also quite overwhelming seeing the support and outcry from the community about it. I suddenly got so many people tweeting at me about it. It was quite incredible, really. Quite like it was overwhelming, somewhat emotional, and very moving. So the fact that people then followed me into moving on over to this new venture um, was amazing because it was scary to kind of try to think of how do you actually make a living doing this? Because no longer are you being paid just a steady wage no matter what. Like everything that comes in is solely dependent on what you now do. Um, so we have to do a lot of research trying to work out how do you do this. And we disregarded Patreon because it looked too bloggish. We knew that from YouTube adverts and things, you just don't make enough money to survive. So we had to go for the subscription thing. And it's like, right, how low can we price this that will still let us feed ourselves and pay for the family and stuff? I'm like, okay, we think that amount. Let's hope it works. And so far, it's worked. Thank God. But it was very tense, especially doing things like learning how to make a website, which of course neither of us had experience in. Roger went hardcore into learning how to do that. And then on launch day, we launched it. Everything was working for about half an hour, and then the server got overwhelmed. People coming to look. Oh God, what's happened? That was a panic time. We worked it out. There are a few little teething problems with that, but ever since that's been sorted out, everything's been smooth sailing. So we're now looking at expanding our offer on there, adding extra features. And weirdly, people keep asking for merchandise, which is a surprise.
I would bite their hand off at that. Like, we do quite a lot of merch through the Honest Wargamer, and it's because there isn't actually a lot out there. Like, people want something cool to wear. If they like the thing, they're going to buy the thing, right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've had loads of fun with that. All sorts of stuff. Scrivo's done some. Wallace has done some. James Powell, and we've had some really interesting things when it comes to gaming, right? So I take gaming super seriously, as you know. And we've been traveling the world, and there's been different problems that have come up when we've live streamed games or just played games. One of the big ones that we had was about objective markers, and we wanted something that, I don't know if you've seen the mouse mat circles that people have used on some games. But instead we came up with like a perspex, well, a C. I don't think it's perspex. James in the chat will know way better than I do because I'm an idiot. But there's these kind of round things, and they've because you're coming up with something that people want, and as soon as you do that, people are like, "That's fine." I think you should definitely get some merch where you could just do all sorts. Get like some face masks, Duncan Rhodes face masks.
Oh my God! Can you imagine going to some show and there's people looking at you wearing a mask of you? Oh God! And I know the internet would do that as well.
They would. You should.
But we've got plans to do it. We do. We're going to do things like so the shirt that you see me wearing in the videos with our logo on. We're going to do things like that. So there's going to be shirts for boys and girls. There's going to be what else? We're thinking of things like mugs and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll see. We'll kind of expand the offering there. And Roger's got ideas for little designs and things that he wants to do for further things. So we've got to get two thin coats in there somewhere, haven't we? So.
I was going to say, if you don't sell a coat that's thin and then sell it as a bundle of two thin coats.
Yes. Yes, that's. I said that. We should is there an option for one like it's a waterproof outer coating that you can take off and it's a fleece, and on the one on the inside it says one thin coat, and on the other one it says second thin coat or something like that. Yeah, it's like, man, we should do that.
People would go wild for that, I think.
Just for the novelty of it, yeah.
I think also you could do brushes. I think you could have just brushes with the Painting Academy handle on and a bunch. I'm sure you guys have had way more thoughts. This is just new to me, so fuck. You're probably miles ahead.
I just want to make sure that the stuff is good before we actually start putting it out to be sold. We want to make sure that everything we do is got a level of quality into it. So we're testing everything thoroughly before we actually show it to anybody. So if people are interested in buying any stuff from us like that, any merch, it is on the way. It's just not quite ready yet.
I think the commitment to quality is really important. Actually, I think that should be a tenet of everyone who's trying to put things out there. I wish I could do that and obviously start the show properly. That would be really fun. Can I ask you a question, which I hope isn't too personal? But how do you find being you? Like, I know that you must have been asked this question before, and I think about people who are big names in the community or in the hobby generally. There's all sorts of people who I know who are like big-ish names that people love seeing, but they're just people, right? My most recent memory for me is I was in Australia at CanCon, and I got to go and see my friends at the Failed Charge again. They're an Australian group of dudes who I got to meet last year when I was over there. Who they They got my sense of humor. They're hilarious. And like last year, we were just making friends. This year, I was like, "Oh, we're gonna go to your hotel tonight and have a laugh." They were like, "Yeah, do you want it?" I was like, "Yes." Like I was, because I'm as excited to meet them as maybe anyone else is to meet me in any situation. So it's just wicked to see those, and I think that all the time. I think everyone's ace, but everyone wants to get to know you. How do you find that? Like, how is that experience for you?
Very, very strange. So it's always been a fear for me of it going to my head and me starting to think of myself as a celebrity or something like that. I really, really don't like that way of thinking for it. Because I mean, at the end of the day, all I want to do is to help people access the hobby better. That's everything about what I want to do. And I get a real thrill out of helping people do that and seeing what they can do. When people approach me in strange ways or are nervous of talking to me and things like that, I find it a very odd thing to handle because I don't understand. Because I'm still the same person I was, at least I think I am, as I have been, all my life. I'm still an introverted kind of person. I'm very much a dork. I like my nerdy things. So I kind of want to be open and honest with people, and if they're going to want to talk to me and they put it on a pedestal in that way, then I do feel like the least I can do is give them some time to talk to them. Recently, I suppose a curious thing that we've got a contact address on the academy where if you email it, I'm the one that handles the emails, and people have been really surprised when if they have a problem or something like that, or they've got a suggestion, they send it in, or maybe some critique or whatever, and then I reply to them saying, "Oh, thanks, that's great. Oh, this. By the way, how are you finding it? Is there any videos you'd like to see?" They're like, "Oh, I didn't think you'd email me." Like, well, of course I would. I've got the time to. I'm going to do my best to do so. Um, so yeah, I think I don't want to lose sight of who I am or what I want to do. I think so. Over the years, I have frequently asked people if I ever get arrogant or it goes to my head, kick my ass. I was worried about what people would think about the name of the academy. In fact, using my name on it, which wasn't my idea. I wanted to call it something like, twothinkcoach.com or something like that. I don't know, some other thing. But it was Roger's point that using my name is something that people know, and so the more likely to find it, they'll understand what's there, and like it or not, my name's become a brand. We kind of argued a bit about it, and I still didn't want to. Eventually, my girlfriend told me off. Like, you've got to, Roger's right, you've got to use it this way. So yeah, that's what we ended up doing it. So telling people DuncanRhodes.com, it feels so weird to me, man. And I really hope people don't think I'm going around like, yeah, I've got a website with my name, I've trademarked my name. It's like, no, it's a in hindsight, it's a sound business choice, and you had to do it that way. So I hope people.
I don't think anyone can blame you, man. Like that's what branding is at the end of the day. Like if sports people can do, like, who's a sports person, kick a ball and they've got a big name. Like it's what you do that is what people like. It's also nice that you're also a sweet ass dude, yeah, right, with a sweet ass, yeah. But
got to stay down to earth. Like, do my part with things. Like with the reenactment group, I'll do my part in raising funds for it and stuff like that. Just go and enjoy and have a good time. I've been trying to use the odd fame. I've been trying to use it responsibly. So there's a shop near me, a gaming store, and obviously with things the way they are at the moment, it's tough times for independent hobby shops. So I've been trying to help get his name out there for mail orders and stuff, and make sure that I buy my parts as well from him. So I'm trying to use it as responsibly as I can. But it does go out there for everybody. If you ever think it's going to my head or I'm sort of losing track of being helpful, I guess, please do say so and kick my ass.
good, yeah. That'll be a fun day. Encouraging the internet to get on your case. Yeah.
Suddenly 1,000 tweets.
Fuck you, buddy. Yeah, absolutely. I have with regarding being yourself, and I know it's because, like, if ever there's a thing, when anyone does a thing like that, someone comes up to you and says something nice, and I'm not equating us in any way, shape, or form, but I've had similar experiences, so I'm trying to share those. And when people come up, you want to give them your time. And I'm lucky; I've been in nightclubs for like a decade, as you know. So like I'm fairly good at like social interactions to some degree. But even sometimes I'm like, holy fuck, like, what are you trying to say to me? Like let's just cuddle it out. Like, I like you, you like me, let's be friends. Like, which is nice. Like, it's really nice. But some of those things sometimes cross the line. Like Dave Fraser in the chat has said, when you do painting classes, has anyone ever like sat in the front rows and thrown paint at you like you're a rock star?
No, everyone in all the classes I've ever done have been in America. Everyone's been really nice. Like universally, everyone's been great. There's usually at the end of it, they'd all want to get selfies with me. Again, something I found very strange. And there was one time when somebody came up and asked me to sign. So we had the Citadel palette pads. They tear the page out and they asked me to sign it. And then all of a sudden, the whole class wanted me to sign the page that they'd been using. So that was very odd. But no one's done anything nasty, thankfully, or crazy, like you say, throwing paint at me or something like that.
I think it was more tongue in cheek. The idea of
yeah. I don't know. I hope. I'm sure there's people out there who don't like me or find me irritating or something, which is like just life, right? But I hope that I've never encountered anything like unpleasant because they sort of understand where I'm coming from. At least I hope so.
I don't think,
we'll see.
I don't think you will either. I don't think in the chat you might see a lot of people writing FUB. If anyone's reading the chat, that regales to a story where I was at an event at Adepticon specifically, and someone shouted, "Hey, fuck you, buddy!" because I was working at Games Workshop. But I just went over and had a chat, and that's the only remotely close to negative experience I've ever had in the community. And we became friends. Like later on at the event, we were hanging out in the cafe. Like it was like I don't think it's a thing in any way, shape, or form. And I don't think anyone thinks you're using your name in a megalomaniac style way. I think it's quite clear, and it's nice to hear that you want to use it in a responsible way. Like last week on the show, we did a charity drive, and we raised like $1,100 for 2 different charities, which is really exciting. Because the community is incredible, right? Like, and I'm sure it's the same in the LARP community, and I'm sure it's the same in any wargaming community or most communities. Pretty much, people are nice people at the end of the day. And I think, and also you can't be on TV without being clear who you are, and you're clearly a really modest and lovely fella. Like that's my experiences of you. It's never been any different. So same with Roger, when I could hear him.
What's nice now is that so people are starting to realise who Roger is. So I've found it really difficult over the years that he's such a huge part of everything that we've done, and no one's known that he's there. And it's been strange at times where we've both been at an event together, or we've been at Bugman's Bar, for example, getting a coffee, and someone wants to come and talk to me. And I'm like, oh, by the way, this is Roger. He's the guy behind the camera who does this. And they'll often be sort of like, oh, yeah, okay. But Duncan. And like, so I can sort of see where they're coming from there. But now that we're able to talk about what he does and show it, and people are realising, in the initial video we did, I was very open about this is what he does. And people are noticing it now. And they're actually talking to us as Duncan Roger, or asking Roger, how do you do those photos and things like that. And I think that's really nice. I'm glad that people are sort of seeing what part he's played. It's he's not too fussed about it. Like that's not why he does it. But it makes me happy to see it.
Yeah, I think it's actually really nice, especially like because when I was there, I said like I asked to interview Roger at one point. I was like, "Would you come on?" Because you do a lot of really great work, and people should get to see that. A bit like the book designers and stuff. And I don't think he ever actually said yes. I think he told me no. What he meant was sod off, but like I think he said no. which is absolutely fair. Like I'm on board with that. But yeah, and was a major part of, because when I joined the team, there was I think I was the 4th member of the team, maybe, or something like that. There was 4 because Emma had just left and Robert just left, so it was Laura, you, and Roger.
Yes, yeah. So you would have been the 4th team member. Yes, and we were in that little office, sort of that turned into a studio, but we were kind of sort of buried at the back, weren't we?
Oh my god! In the little dark grey room, it was so sweet to be in there, like close.
No lights,
lights,
no windows rather. So it was like no daylight coming in.
Grey walls,
really pale and like golems, weren't we?
It's a bit like my office now. Did you guys enjoy setting up a new studio, like designing it, or did Roger enjoy that, setting up a studio to how he wanted it to work?
Yeah, that was basically Roger's doing. He had so much fun. So we basically saved up money, so we had an initial investment for things, and so we had allocated so much money we could use to build the studio. So off Roger went doing his internet research of like picking out what sort of gear he wants. He want this, these lights, want this, want that, and then the first thing we did was went to IKEA to buy some furniture for like desks and backdrops. We built the frame for the sort of wooden backdrop that we've got. And then we went off buying camera gear, which, as you know, is not cheap. And he had so much fun testing all these cameras and things and interrogating the shop staff about what can it do and things. He had me bring along models to the shop so he could have a go at, put them different distances and have me standing in different ways to see if he could focus and get the shots he wanted and things. He went well into it. He had so much fun.
Were you like, I hate this?
I was like, so for me, like I knew, okay, so again, my sphere of this sort of job that we've done has always been about the actual content of the things, whereas Roger's about how you shoot it and show it. So this was very much him indulging in his area, and I was like, it's cool because do you know what? I'm going to get to decide to paint a Napoleonic French infantryman, and he's going to have to film it and then edit it. So yeah, so I'll get my time in the sun as well. He loved it, and I thought it was fun watching him do this sort of stuff because he got so into doing his research and so into picking out what was going to be best. And he got worried if he was like, oh God, this camera's this much money. What if it doesn't do what I want? And, he was in his element. Absolutely.
Oh, that's fab.
He takes such care of the gear now. He keeps it all pristine. Once a shot's done, it all goes back in its cases and all has this little place where it all goes and stuff.
That's really exciting. That's fun. It's nice to see that, especially for yourselves. Like, are there plans to? So you kicked off the academy. Can I ask, because I know you said it, but I wanted to narrow down on the point. The point of the academy is what?
The point of the academy is to allow an accessible way to learn to paint your miniatures. That's what it's all about. So it's trying to break down any barriers that people might have when it comes to wanting to paint their models. And we intend to do that by having a sort of an internal language. I say internal language. Basically, it's like common terms and things, but to explain what these different techniques are and to use them on various models as case studies. So everyone's known us for doing individual miniatures, as we used to do at Games Workshop. And so we started out with that, but ultimately we want it to have a selection of a whole host of techniques that give you things to practice to sort of master these various different things. And then like hundreds of guides on miniatures from all over the place that you can try. As a side point to that, we kind of want it to be able to introduce people into things that they didn't know existed, or allow them to kind of have not quite an unboxing, but if you were interested in a subject and you wanted to see what those models are actually like, then having a full video showing how the thing's painted is about as good as you can get to show the quality of the miniature itself. So that's kind of like a side product of it. But yeah, it's core. It's about teaching people to paint the models to a standard that they really want.
Yeah, that's good. It's always nice to have. You don't diffuse objectives. You want it to be able to nail it in a single sentence.
Is that a gaming thing? You want one objective that you go for? Is that how it works?
No, it's a peep show thing. Is what I was referencing.
I see.
Kind of interesting, actually. Mirrors something that we did on the website, and actually, I really like what you're saying about that. I'd like to follow up with a question, if you don't mind, because on the website, on the Honest Wargamer website, what I did was I went through with all the show hosts Mondays and Thursdays. We went through and we had kind of rows about gaming words and terms, because while there's Games Workshop and there's a bunch of other game designers, I don't know if there's like courses yet or there's a standardization. So one of the things that we did was we round about loads of words and then we turned those, or the ideas, and we turned them into keywords and then we put them up on the website. So if anyone was writing something on the website or wanted a list of keywords, and they were included in the workbook, so when people needed some sort of concept, they're like, okay, it's been predefined. I really like that you guys have gone through that same process. My follow-up is because I obviously don't know anywhere near as much about painting as you. I earlier on in the year painted using Coca-Cola as my thinner. I don't think that's suggested.
I don't know. It might it might attract flies. I don't know.
What, to the model? I don't know. Maybe. Oh no, that explains the smell. No, my follow-up question is as far as you're aware, in the painting community, because there are loads of painters out there, obviously. Is there like a standardization in terminology, or not really, especially for new people? Is there not really a standardization in, like, I'd be interested to know what you think.
So, I mean, there's like techniques, obviously, they're all named in their own ways. Painters are all different, though. It's like you can actually, after you do enough of it, you can spot who's painted what by picking out the little signature almost of how they've done it. So I wouldn't say there's a particularly a standard way of doing stuff. I think the most standardized way you could find is probably Games Workshop's way, because that's what people are introduced to when they get into the hobby most of the time. So I think people, and that's obviously largely what we do, I think people are very familiar with that language of those techniques just because they're exposed to it from day one. Um, but it doesn't take long if you start looking at various YouTubers about how they do stuff that you'll find they all have their own little sort of like ways of doing things or how they prefer to approach things. So I think what we're trying to do is our own sort of standardized way that's based upon this common language that people will get when they get into things, and then introduce things on top of that. But I really like the idea you have of keywords of like, this is what this means. I think that's a really cool way of getting a foundational understanding of things. Because I think when it comes to the magic of like learning to paint miniatures, right, is you want to get to a point where you don't necessarily need a video walking you through the stages of painting a thing. Instead, if you understand the techniques and you take a look at stuff, you should be able to deduce, okay, so if I use these paints in this way, it'll look something like this, which is what I want. Then I can experiment one or two things to vary it slightly, but I know how to do it. I mean, looking at my desk right now, the next thing I'm going to be painting is some Unsullied for Song of Ice and Fire. And I know roughly what I'm going to do with that by just looking at the model, because I'm aware of what other techniques I apply to other things. I think that's, for us, that's the goal, to get people to understand at that level. Then they can start to learn these extra things that they want to take things further if they want to. Yeah, I don't know. I'm rambling a little bit with that, I think.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you hit the salient points. It makes sense. And it's still true. As much as I wrote something and there's a website that says some keywords, doesn't mean anyone listens, and it also doesn't mean anyone who makes other things doesn't go, yeah, I'll use those keywords, Rob. That's so great.
Yeah, well, I think with the painting, like having this initial, I think the core what I'm trying to say is having this core understanding of techniques will allow you to know that if you use them, you'll get a nice looking model, and that's great for just about everybody. If you're trying to learn this hobby, or you've been into a few years but you know are into the painting, if you can have that knowledge of if I do that, it'll look like that, that's awesome. People will inevitably start to put their own style upon it, because that's just the nature of I suppose. I mean, I don't like calling miniature painting art, but if you think of actual art, like with doing paintings and things, all these great painters all have different ways of doing things, because that's just the style they've developed. And you'll find with miniatures, people will start to develop their own little flourishes and things, which is what these YouTubers have done. And they're showcasing that sort of stuff. Like if you paint like how they do, you'll get something that sort of looks like what they do. But people will be like, but I prefer doing it this way, and it'll inevitably take them on a unique way of doing their own thing, which I think is the really cool level to reach. Like if you can get to the point where you have this knowledge, but you've taken it your own way, that's awesome. That's like your thing, then your own private thing. And that's what a real magic part of this hobby is, because the army that you paint is unique to you, and no one else will ever have one that looks exactly like yours. And I wouldn't want that to ever change.
Oh, so the mission is to bring people up to a level where they can get to where they push themselves beyond those things eventually,
Yeah,
and find their
yeah.
own style. That's really nice,
Yeah,
because I think that's actually really important, because instead of focusing on, I don't want to say the high end, because actually as a painter I think anything you do is high end compared to anything I could ever even think of. So that's a different thing. But I think that's a really great way to bring people through, which is super cool. I've had a cool question. And I know what the answer is going to be, but I'm going to ask it anyway so people can hear. When you took the leap, did you and Roger, or specifically you, but obviously because Roger can't be a answer for him, did you worry about letting each other down?
Yes. I certainly worried about that. I mean, I am a worrier by nature, right? So it was pretty inevitable for me to feel that way. But I was worried with the tuition I wanted to do on these things, and the sort of level of detail I wanted to put into these things, am I going to be able to do it in a way that's going to make people want to follow us? And will they be willing to ultimately pay for it as well, so that we can actually continue? So I was concerned about that, and also my sphere of learning how to run a business. I don't want to mess anything up that causes trouble for both of us. And I'm pretty sure Roger was as well, about because his stuff was all on the technical side. I think he was really worried about dropping a lot of money on a camera or something that turned out to be useless, or we didn't need, or didn't achieve what we wanted it to do, and wasted us a few £1,000s. He seemed concerned about that. But at the same time, both of us really picked each other up at low points. Times when we would sort of sat there thinking to ourselves, are we going to be able to get the people we want? Because it was easy to, when I did hand in my notice, and I looked around a bit at the internet of what people were saying about it. I found a forum where people were discussing what could I do? And they will generally sort of pushing onto a very negative narrative of you can't use this to go anywhere. God knows what he's going to go do now. And like you read something like that and you think, well, maybe they're right. Like I'm just painting toys. Who's going to, give me money for this sort of thing? And then Roger will be like, well, no, because look at this. This is what's happened. Look at the results here. Look at all these people who have like talked in this way. Look at this. And it's like, yeah, actually, you're right. So we both will be performing that sort of thing to each other. And Roger had his low times as well. And there were a few things that he was really worried about. But we talked about it, and I got his confidence back as well. So I think that's something perhaps that I've not really been aware of, I suppose, until you've asked about this, of just how important it's been. But we are very close friends. We do get along very well, and we trust each other with this kind of thing because, well, when with this sort of stuff involved, you have to, especially if it's going to be the two of us together working for years to come. We have to get on.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was a great question. I really do. And I wouldn't also listen to them. Like, if I was in any way in charge at Games Workshop, I'd have offered you both millions of pounds. I want to be crystal. A year. I would have just gone, what do you want to do? And then you'd have gone this, and I go, cool. That, as a business person, that would have been my response. That's all I'm going to say about it. I would have been like, what? And it's not because I don't think you are more valuable than anyone else who works there. But I do think that what you can do now, as who you are, that's specifically talking for one business. What you can do now is highlight all these other incredible things, which I know you've been into for years, like the Napoleonic stuff. Like I know you're a big fan of A Song of Fire and Ice, right? There's some stuff that you're currently working on for that.
Yeah, that's right. So I picked up the so for each of the factions in that there's a starter box, and it's like one of those get started kind of things in Warhammer. And I've been doing the House Targaryen one of that, which is just a Dothraki horde of horsemen. That's my kind of thing, charging on everything. So I think it's been nice because it's allowed these companies to access, I think, a way of showing the miniatures that they've just not been able to do so before. Because we're approaching everything in as professional way as we can. I'm like, all right, so what's the objective of this video? What do we want to show? And I'm really proud of that game in particular. We did a video on our YouTube channel of painting one of the Lannister Guard guys, which is just like one of the regular soldiers you get in the core box game. And I've noticed since we did that, on like various Facebook groups and stuff, and examples of the models that people have been painting, their Lannisters have suddenly started looking like the ones in this video, and the view count for the video is very, very high. It's actually caught up and overtook a World War II thing, which was a big surprise. So I think it's really cool to be able to allow companies to have this sort of thing to show their product, and we want to stick to our requirement. If we do a video on something, it's because we like it. We don't want to do something because somebody's paid us a lot of money to do it. We're not going to go that way. If we do a video on something, it's because not necessarily that we endorse it, but that I've picked up that set and I've looked at it and gone, yeah, I think that's a cool model, and we're going to do that. So yeah, I think it's.
I think that's actually I think that's a huge positive. I think working for yourself and being able to define I like this, so because surely being creative is hard to do about something you don't want to do. So why ever put yourself in that box again? I'm not saying that that's what you had to do at your previous job, but you're now your own master, so you can be as excited about whatever. And I think being who you are and also doing what you do, you can bring attention to like French line infantry. You could be like, I'm going to paint these up, and people are like, actually, I'm going to explore that. I yesterday had one of the commissioners of Blood Bowl, well, ex-commissioners of Blood Bowl on, Mike, who was amazing. It was one of the best conversations I've ever had on live stream. I just sat there, he was just telling me about Blood Bowl. I was like, I guess I'm playing fucking Blood Bowl now. Like, and I know that's a big. I know that's
a big turnaround for you.
Yeah, that's a thank you. I know that's a big turnaround, but like. Being able to have people like that on and get you so excited is really cool. So having you excited about the things that you're excited about, I think is a truth. I don't know. I'll send you later a video I watched really early on into doing the Honest Wargamer by Stephen Colbert, where he talked about emotional truth, and he talked about if you be who you are as a presenter and be excited about things that you're genuinely excited about, that's way better than ever trying to force anything, which I found super valuable for me and has been something I've tried to follow up with over the past few years. So yeah, that was I don't know where we were. I also am rambling, but we're getting we're getting close towards the end. So is there anything final you would like to maybe say or talk about? There's some people in the chat I want to say ask some questions. I'm sure. Hensteel, thanks for subscribing, by the way.
Well, yeah, they're all welcome to ask questions. I suppose the thing I should say to everybody is thank you for following this very crazy ride that I've had, and thank you for following Roger as well. I guess it's really cool to see people have actually embraced what we're doing and followed it, and it is quite amazing that people seem to be getting the point of view of what we're coming from. It's really humbling. It's very exciting. And I don't think it's anything I'll ever really be able to express accurately how I feel about it to these people, but it is something that I'll never take for granted. And it's, in what we're doing going forward, we're always going to be putting our best effort into it. Like I was saying, with miniatures, we want to cover everything really, and it doesn't matter whether I particularly like that faction or not. But if we do it, it's going to be a miniature that we approve of as we think this is a really cool thing and it's worth your time. So yeah, I hope people get that as we carry on.
Yeah, all great sentiments. I have a question from Nikos. He says, anyone else find it weird that these two light dark, I'm assuming you're the dark one, Dunk, two sides of the same coin, hobby/gaming, both have South African besties? Because I've also got I remember when we met, you were like, this is Roger. Yeah. I was like, well, this is Nathan. I don't know if you... But they're from different places, actually. Roger's South African, Nathan's Zimbabwean. Yes. I honestly think it's pretty much the same, but I'm sure they'll disagree.
Hey, you know what? I've just remembered of another conversation we had. You told me back when we were in the studio that you'd read the Wheel of Time series.
Yes.
And yes, I finished listening to the audiobooks of it maybe a year after that or so. Because my girlfriend started reading them, and I was listening to the audiobooks at the same time whilst I was doing my painting and stuff. And it just reminded me that I finished that series too. Now that was a very cool series.
Isn't that good? Paul's braid furiously. Yes. Apparently, it's going to be a TV show.
Yeah, apparently, it'll be interesting.
It was very good. I do got to ask you some nerd questions through the... I'm glad you read it. It's really good. And also, it's like a bit of a milestone to say you finished it. Someone's like, oh, I'm not sure I'm finished this book. And you're like, can you finish 13 books? Yeah.
It's long books as well. I think it's worth it in the end because it's a very good story and it's very deep. And there's a lot of things like early criticisms I had of it. By the end of it, you totally see why it does those things in that way. So I thought it was cool for that.
I'm a big fan of that, totally. My girlfriend, she is a book editor, or a commissioning editor for books, but still an editor in some way. I'm sure I've got that wrong, and I'll get told off. But we talked about that a lot because I think he writes female characters quite well, which is really good. A couple of the questions then I'll ask. What's your workout routine?
My workout routine.
And can you do more push-ups than Vince Ventrella?
I don't know who that is. So I suppose my workout routine is just going out for walks with my girlfriend. That's basically what the main thing is. She started doing some more exercise, and she was doing press ups, and she was dead proud of how many she did. So she's like, "Oh, can you do them?" So I did them, and I did more, and then she got upset. But it's not like I actively do a lot though. She's probably can do more than me by now. Yeah.
Wow. Donaldini in the chat saying my girlfriend doesn't watch this, so I won't be in trouble. The snap, that's pretty mean. Yeah, I've started doing some workout in the studio. It's been fun. Apparently that's a thing. Stand up a bit. I've also got a stand-up desk, which is probably useless for painting, I guess. But it's been my big. That's changed my life. I don't know if you. That's my suggestion. Stand-up desk, maybe for Rog, so he's not sat down so much.
That'd be good. Yeah,
it'd be good. A couple of other things. Number one, is Roger on Twitter, and why not?
He's not, but he does sort of talk on Twitter sometimes through my accounts, and same on Instagram. So I mean, those accounts are sort of merging into Academy accounts, I suppose. But you can certainly see his handiwork, and if people want to ask him things, then I can basically ask him, then get his answer and post that. So yeah,
that works. That absolutely works.
He does have an Instagram account. It's called Funko Jim Jam. And he posts photographs of Funko Pops from his son.
That's incredibly cute.
It's very cute, yeah.
That's super cute. I would not expect that in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, he doesn't like the sort of. I guess people, if you've seen the kind of photographs I've been putting on my Instagram of these like the black backgrounds and stuff, it's like that with all this like professional level lighting of a Funko Pop. Like you say, it's really cute.
That's really sweet. Oh, lovely. Okay, well, I've kept you for an hour, so I don't want to keep you any longer because I'm sure you're working hard. And I want to say a big thank you for coming on the show and for everyone joining us live. We obviously are going to include all the links below. I'm sure anyone who's watching this doesn't need to, but I will just in case. And it's really nice to hear from you again. Thanks very much for being on the show.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's great talking to you folks, and it's hello chat. I can't see the chat, but it's thanks for watching.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of dudes. Another one, a question that has been asked, but I'm sure you get emails for these questions as well, is can we get a tutorial on photography from Roger?
Yes.
Would be a
Yes.
cool thing.
So a lot of people have been asking that. Roger basically wants to do a tutorial on doing his photography. He's just trying to work out the best way of doing it because it's like, how does he film doing this thing? Because he needs the cameras to do it. So, but he's working on something. He's got an idea. So we will do something. But yeah, he's aware. He's very aware.
Oh, good. Lovely. All right, well, send him my love as well. Big shout out to everyone who has joined us live. Thanks so much. Don't forget, we'll be live tomorrow and every day until the Rona lockdown is over. So I honestly don't know what I've committed to be honest, Duncan. It's
Yeah, at this rate, it sounds like it's going to be going all year.
Yeah, when I wrote in 39 today, I was like, tomorrow's going to be 40? Oh, wow, that's plenty. Anyway, but yeah, please join us tomorrow for that. It's very exciting. Thank you for joining us live. If you listen to the podcast, please stay hydrated. And thank you to everyone on the Oswald Gamer Patreon who supports the show. Couldn't do it without you. So you guys are brilliant. Look after yourselves, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.